Morning.
Morning. Good bounce.
Mike, great to have you here.
You're welcome. Why are we here?
I think we're really going to delve into the topic of managed security today.
Big topic. Let's do it.
I'm going to jump straight in with a role play question, okay? I'm a business owner. I work in the manufacturing industry. I have 50 staff. Some of the contracts we're engaging in has asked us to take IT security a little bit more serious. So I've approached Team Met Logic. Where do Team Met start?
I think that's the same question that you ask yourselves as the business. Where do we start? Cybersecurity can be quite a complex landscape to navigate. So identifying where that starts, what you start to look at from a cybersecurity perspective, and even you fast forward that to where does it end? When do you stop putting cybersecurity measures in place? I think given the complexity of the landscape that we look at, you start by looking at your own business. What are the risks that sit within your business, and what do you think that you need to mitigate? And what's really important, I think, is that any solution that you do find, or any solutions that you put in place, they've got to be fit for purpose. There's no one size fits all. There's no single solution that will apply to every business. So it's what you're going to be able to put in place that is fit for purpose for your business. What is also going to last time, really. I mean, the cybersecurity landscape is always evolving, as you know. Every year, every 6 months, we're reading new reports about how the top threats to businesses have changed, how those threats have evolved, and that cybersecurity landscape is always evolving. So just because we pick a solution to a problem today doesn't mean that that's the same solution that we might be employing in 6 months' time. And certainly, probably one solution's never enough.
Okay, you talk about the start and an end point. You've approached my business. Try and break it down for me. How do you simplify cybersecurity?
In really simple terms, you can't manage what you can't measure. So you've got to start to look at where the gaps sit in your own cybersecurity posture. One of the things that we do as a business is that we talk to our partners about a 15-point cyber checklist. Again, this is always changing. Usually about once a year, we make tweaks to this checklist. But really speaking, it contains the top 15 things that a business should be looking to implement if they want to bolster their own cybersecurity posture. It's not necessarily about them having all 15, but it's about looking at what they could put in place and what of those 15 are going to have the biggest impact on the risk factors in their business. And basically, I think what you want to be doing by looking at this 15-point checklist is that's going to give you an indicator as to what the 15 risks are to your business. And when you consider each of those risks in turn and on their own merit, it's, look, can we accept that risk as a business, or is it something that we've got to try and mitigate? Is that risk a problem to us? And so of the risks that you do need to do something about, where can you put the available budget that you've got? Because you've got to be honest, for small businesses, medium enterprises, it's always a limited budget that they're trying to find to shoehorn into this problem. And I think then once you do that, it's making sure that the return on investment that you get from it, or at least the impact that this spend has on your business, is ticking as many of those boxes as possible. So it might be a simple decision as to, look, we've got this risk and it means put in this much money to remediate against it. Or we could put less money across multiple mitigation measures, and that will give us a bit more of a bolstering against these potential threats. What we want to achieve, I guess, for you as a business is to get maximum impact for the available budget that you've got to spend.
We talk about multi-layered approaches when it comes to cybersecurity. Why is building that defense in depth so important for an organization?
Nothing's impenetrable. So for that very reason, no one solution is enough. If you think about, go back Middle Ages and onwards, we built concentric castles, we put lots of walls and then moats in between. So the idea of that is really simple. And that is, 100 meters, 200 meters away from the really important part of that castle where the keep is, you can see when an attack starts to happen. You know that someone's trying to get through the outermost wall of your perimeter. And then you can send all the resources you've got to the next layer of that defense to try and stop that attack coming a bit further. And principles of defense in depth in cybersecurity are no different in 2025. We're trying to put lots of things in place, multiple layers of defense in place, so that if that perimeter is attacked, we know that it's being attacked. And should they get through, they're not straight at the pot of gold on the inside immediately. And the other side to that is that by being able to see attempted attacks at your perimeter, or even in the layers of defense beyond, just slightly inside that perimeter, we can be aware that an attack is happening. That might be a trigger for us to take systems offline, to send more defenses to certain areas, to try and seek some professional advice and support to combat that attack in progress. But certainly, defense in depth is the real answer to effective cybersecurity posture.
I really like that, that overall analogy. I think that's great. And, you touched on, budgets in your answer earlier on there. How would businesses with a limited budget address cybersecurity?
The budget is always going to be limited. I would love to meet a client or a partner where they say, "Hey, we've got an unlimited budget for cybersecurity. Go forth and spend it." The key bit, I think, is that something's better than nothing. Whether you were looking at insuring your business, do you insure your buildings for £100,000 or £1 million? Do you insure your public liability, your professional indemnity for 2 million, 5 million, or 10 million? Having nothing is the real problem. So certainly start with something, and it's okay to start small when it comes to that. And starting small, I think, starts with measuring that risk, and it's a narrative that we're going to keep on going on about, but you cannot manage what you cannot measure. Sure. You cannot manage what you cannot see. So we really need to just understand where those risks lie in the business. And if we've got a limited budget, because we inevitably will have a limited budget, it's where are we going to get the largest impact from any spend that we put in place. Let's not buy something for the sake of buying it. Let's not buy one solution because it's got lots of bells and whistles, and on the tin it says that it's going to solve all of our cybersecurity problems. Even if it means we've got to spend a bit less, but on multiple different products, or we've got to spend a bit more to get that true defense in depth, that's probably more effective than the contra decision to that. I suppose the next question is what if we do nothing at that point? And there are many businesses that take that option. They decide that I'm going to hope for the best. And in reality, it's never a question of if, it's always a question of when. We've seen it from a managed services perspective, where we see attacks happening on a daily basis. Be that just through email attack, be it through social engineering, be it through physical brute force attacks on a business's perimeters. Look, if you do nothing, what position are we in? Obviously, you're opening yourselves up to attack. Your risk factor is much more increased. And when that attack happens, you're going to have operational downtime. And that's often one of the balances that we try and get people to contemplate when we're looking at what to spend on cybersecurity. What does downtime cost you? Again, it's going back to let's measure. What is the actual cost for us of a business of being unable to trade for 1 hour or 1 day? And for different businesses, that's a different answer, isn't it? It could be a case that a business could quite easily afford to be down for a day or even 2 days, and it doesn't have much impact to their revenues or their profitability. However, other businesses, an hour could be catastrophic to them. So the amount that you spend and the risk that you are trying to mitigate is relative to how long you can afford to be without anything. So operational downtime is a huge one for as an offshoot of doing nothing. And associated with that, as I just mentioned, is the cost. And it's not just financial burden. We've also got to look at the cost to your reputation. Cyber insurance now is there for a reason. And a big part of cyber insurance is to look after PR and communication to stakeholders and partners and customers and supply chains in the event of one of those attacks.
I think it's built on a mindset in it of, getting something in place before you need it. There's no telling when something like that could happen. We take calls here in, the project department, in the service department. asking for these products. And I think it's about bolstering that mindset of getting in place before it's too late.
Absolutely. There's no point trying to insure your car after you've written it off.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, another great analogy. Absolutely. Okay, so we're talking about technical projects. I'm involved quite heavily in the deployment of our security stack. Let's talk some of those products if we can. A big one for us in the service team, and a more simpler one, I think, from a partner perspective, is something called Keeper, which is a password management suite. Why is something like that so important as we start talking about this stack?
Slightly ironic answer, I guess, but a password manager is so important because we've got to try and get to a passwordless environment.
Yeah.
And what do we mean by that? I think it's, look, I am not safe to know my own passwords.
Yeah.
I am part of the problem.
Yeah.
And so is everybody else. And so if you don't know your own password, the chances are nobody else is going to know your own password.
Correct.
What a password manager is really good at is storing all of your passwords securely. There's an argument, or some might say that, well, if you're putting all those passwords in one place, what happens if that gets compromised?
Sure.
It's about risk, and the risk of that happening, given the levels of encryption and the levels of protection on the integrity of the data in there, are so high that it is more risky that you don't use a password manager than if you did. And by using a password manager effectively and having it set up properly, you can be in a position where your passwords to websites are 20, 30 characters long, no recognizable strings. They're complex with symbols and numbers and so on. And there's no way that you could even remember what those passwords were if you wanted to. And when you hit a website that needs authentication with one of those passwords, the password manager is going to fill them in for you automatically. And it's only going to do that if you pass security with the password manager. And invariably nowadays, that's through some form of biometrics.
Yeah.
So you've logged into Windows with Windows Hello, you've used your face to get into your phone, your fingerprint, etc. By that level of authentication, the password manager is then releasing that password straight into the website and passing it through. You don't see the password. There's no password written on a post-it note on your monitor, which we still see a lot of. And there's no risk from somebody looking over your shoulder and watching you type in a password. And then, because the threats are not only external, we've got to consider the insider threats as well.
Absolutely.
And on those insider threats, we come to the sharing of passwords. Very often you'll have businesses that will have some sort of service, some sort of website or provider or supplier that they use, and there is one password to get in, and half a dozen people have got to use that password.
Yeah.
An example of that, for argument's sake, might be a courier company or Royal Mail. They just got to print some stamps or print some parcels to go out.
Yeah.
What you don't want is that one person leaves the business and you've got to start thinking, what passwords did they have? What shared passwords did they have access to? Have we got to go and change all of those? It's really difficult to measure that. It's really difficult to keep control and audit of that. And so you could be in a situation where somebody's left the business and they can still log into a system that you used to use. A good password manager will allow for secure sharing of those passwords. And again, where the person that you're sharing the password with doesn't see the password. They've just got access for the password manager to fill that password in. And these tools work really effectively. Also, from a compromise perspective, they're able to scan the dark web, the underbelly of the internet where these stolen credentials are sold and traded. And they can identify if passwords that you've used elsewhere might have been sold on the dark web and prompt you to then change those passwords and even change the passwords for you, updating them in your password manager. A really effective tool for a really low cost, actually.
Definitely. Let's move on to some of the other products in that stack. Obviously, we've got something called Ironscales. Very efficient tool when it comes to catching phishing attempts. Something that comes along with that product is obviously the security awareness training, the phishing simulations. Talk me through Ironscales as a product.
Yeah, it's a really strong product that actually does a lot in one solution that you just touched on. The first part of it is preventative. So it's about stopping that spam, the junk mail, the phishing attempts from even hitting the mailbox.
Sure.
Let's talk about defense in depth again, but some of those things will get through regardless. When they hit the mailbox, we've got a remediation element built into them so that a user can query an email. They can report it as potentially a phishing email or a suspicious email. That then sends that email away for review. And if it does, exceed the scoring criteria that say this is now a suspicious email, at that point from a further piece of review, then the solution can actually pull that email out of the mailbox and destroy it or quarantine it. At the same time, it can see where in the rest of the business, in other people's mailboxes, that same email has been delivered. And it will have been, because a phishing attempt doesn't just hit one mailbox. It will probably hit most of the mailboxes in your business. And it will pull it out of all of those as well. So we put a preventative measure in place. We assume that something will get through that. And then we've got a measure to try and pull those suspicious emails out of the mailbox post delivery. And then around that, we've got a huge piece on awareness and training, which is such a massive factor in the everyday attempts at mitigating cyber threat. Our users, the people that we put in front of those keyboards and screens, they are the weakest link in the chain. Often they are the bit that is susceptible to human error. But they're also our strongest piece. They are our last line of defense. And so the more we can train our users, the more we can educate them about the risk, the more we can teach them about best practice when it comes to cybersecurity, the better. And again, same narrative. You can't manage what you can't measure. Let's measure how risky our people are. So phishing simulations in Ironscales are a really great tool. So what that will do is every month, every 2 months, however often we want to set this up, it will send a fake phishing email, a bit of a double entendre there, isn't it? But they will send a fake phishing email designed by us into that user's mailbox. If they open the email, it will log in the reporting that they've opened the email. If they click on one of the links in the email, it will log that they've clicked on one of the links. And then, I mean, worst case, if they then put some credentials in, the good news is that they don't go anywhere. It's a secure testing environment and they get destroyed. But at that point, it's going to tell the user straight away, this was an exercise. In this instance, you haven't been compromised. But if it wasn't an exercise, you would have been. And your identity, we talk about identity theft a lot. But your digital identity, the keys that get you into all your corporate systems might have been leaked somewhere. And they can be reused in seconds. Somebody is literally waiting on the other end to see you type those pieces of information in. And they will use them instantly to log in as you, even send you an MFA code in some instances and capture that MFA token. And once they're in, they will change your passwords, they will lock you out, and they have control of your identity. So being able to teach the user at that point, this is where you went wrong. Let's show you a little video. Let's give you a training exercise. And then if they watch that video, we lower their risk score down, because whilst they might have been susceptible to the exercise, they've also now been trained the other side of that. And not just from simulations, but just general security awareness training, getting just video training into people's mailboxes every month, so they can just see, well, this is what to look out for in a phishing email. This is what to look out for when I'm changing a password. This is what good password hygiene looks like. These are some of the common scams that we're seeing every week, every month, etc. So yeah, putting all of that stuff into one package also means that from a reporting perspective, we can then sit down with the stakeholders in a business, be the compliance team or the HR teams or the C-suite execs, and we can say, look, of all your users, these are the risky ones. These are the ones we've got to put more training in. Maybe we've got to be a bit cautious about what we give them access to, because they are the risky ones. And they might be risky because of their actions. They might be risky because of their job title. If you've got CEO or CFO or managing director in your job title, then all of a sudden you're a big risk, because you've got a social profile, and threat actors will be able to see that from a, we call it whaling or spear phishing, but they'll be able to get better results if they compromise that mailbox compared to somebody that works in sales or somebody that works as a customer advisor, etc. Naturally, at that level, you'll have a lot more access to stuff.
And one final product, which is definitely exciting for us and has already worked wonders in the cyber essentials field for me and my project team, is something called Trusted mobile threat protection. We talk about BYOD devices, people constantly having their mail on their own personal devices, that then hindering the cyber essentials process, causing a bit of a black hole in their IT security. Talking about Trusted.
Yeah, Trusted is a really exciting product, actually, and I'm really pleased that we managed to bring it into the stack this year. And this is a classic example of where the threat landscape evolves, and where we have to be quick to adapt to it. And as you said, the problem is with bringing your own devices. We're in a position where everybody wants to be connected somehow, anywhere, anytime, any place, any device, etc. And we're all carrying around mobiles with us now that do an awful lot. And it's really common. We ran a quick poll, actually, and on a webinar that we did, and I think it was about 82% of the people on that webinar said that they had no idea how many people were using personal devices in their organization, but they knew that they were being used regularly.
Yeah.
And like we say, it's quite common. You'll have your emails on your personal phone, your work emails on your personal phone. And now that we're looking at things like voice over IP, but through much more modern technologies, like using Microsoft Teams as our telephone client, people are having Teams installed on their mobile phone because that means that they can send quick messages to various groups in work. And also they might be using it to actually make and receive calls.
Yeah.
So you've got these apps that are starting to be deployed on people's personal mobile devices, but that brings huge risk.
Certainly.
We start to talk at that point about shadow IT. We start to talk about the things that we can't even see, let alone what we can't measure. We're now going even further backwards than where we were when we were just talking about let's measure cybersecurity. We can't even see a lot of these devices. And from a compliance perspective, as you touched on, Cyber Essentials now, the scope of that has changed, and it includes personal devices if they're used for corporate activities. And the one thing that is really difficult is being in a position where we have to manage personal devices. If I was an employee of a business, I want the convenience, and my employer wants the convenience of me having my emails and Teams on my mobile phone. But now there is a compliance requirement that that device in that circumstance has to be managed. Well, what am I giving up from a privacy perspective in allowing my employer to do that? Will they see the calls that I'm making on a personal level? Will they see my text messages? Will they see what websites I visit? Will they see what apps I've got installed? There are a whole raft of privacy concerns around being able to do that, but the business can't achieve compliance. They can't meet the requirements of the framework that they have to meet in order to operate effectively and securely, unless they either manage the device or the user loses all that convenience. And then there's the counter. What's the solution to that? Give everyone a corporate device? Many businesses don't have the budget to be able to give 50, 60, 100 staff all company mobile phones just for them to get their emails on. That's probably why they've got laptops. So trusted, where does that fit in? It's a brilliant product that ticks all of those boxes. It allows us to put a really lightweight app on the mobile device. It knows that it's a personally owned device. The only thing that's going to transmit out of that device is the make and model of the device, the version of the software that's installed on it, and a compliance status, which is either red, amber, or green. If that device goes into amber status, it's medium risk. It's going to tell the user that they're in a state of risk and give them some advice on what they should or might do to remove it. If that device goes high risk into a red category, all it's going to do is block the user from accessing any of those company resources. So at the time that my device goes high risk, maybe that's because I haven't updated the software on it, iOS or the Android software for 2 or 3 versions. It's significantly out of date. It might be because I've installed an app that is malicious on the device. And in that instance, what it's going to do is just put the device into a high risk mode. It's going to stop me from accessing my emails. It's going to stop me from using my credentials for any corporate services on that device. I can still use Facebook. I can still use my phone for all the things that I use it for personally. And the actual cause of this non-compliant status doesn't leave the device. And the employer can't do anything about it. They don't need to because the risk is mitigated. It'll give some information to the user. It'll say, update your Apple software, your iOS software, or it'll say, you installed this application, it's actually malicious, and it will help them to remove the application. As soon as they do, device goes back into a green state of compliance. They can get access to all their resources again. It's so effective.
It's a one-app wonder, isn't it?
It is, but with privacy baked in by design, which is often quite rare in a lot of these management monitoring solutions.
I agree.
And Trusted is one of those ones where it's got lots of deployment options. So as part of our security stack, a fully managed service, we can take care of all of that. But also, another side to what we do is just purely telecoms. And so from a telecoms perspective, we might have customers that are just taking mobile services on 3 or Vodafone or O2 with us. And we can just bolt that on to their mobile phone bills, at which point their own IT company, their own internal teams, even their own MSP, if you work with a different IT provider, can manage that solution for them effectively and just get that risk level way down.
Mike, thanks so much. Obviously, lots covered in the topic of managed security. Really nice to talk to you on it. Thank you so much.
No problem. You're welcome.
If you'd like to find out more on these topics, please head towards our socials or go to our website where you can find out a lot more. We'll see you on the next one. Thank you so much.